But I think you can definitely get to that point because this leads right into my methodology. Actually, is one of the key things I talk about is what I call a clear intent, which really comes down to a narrow focus. Mm-hmm. And so where this comes into my leadership development is leaders have to narrow that focus for their people. What do I mean by that? Well, inevitably when I talk to these business leaders, whatever organization, I'll ask them, what's your intent for this year, this quarter? And inevitably they'll start listing off, 10, 15 things. I said, this is great. That's
Right.
strategic initiatives. But what are the top 3 narrow focus priorities you want your people to think about?
Do they,
as a backdrop?
When they give you that list, is it more performance driven, like sales, numbers, things of that nature?
Many times it is. I mean, a lot of time, and it should. You should have some metrics
Sure.
in those strategic initiatives. Sometimes it's just, we want to do this, and that's a different conversation because that's a conversation of clearly defined outcomes, I call it. Mm-hmm. How do you define those? But when it comes down to the clear intent, that is hey, what are the top 3 priorities here that you want them to focus on? It's not a strategy. And I think it's a little more detailed than a vision because it really narrows down to what are the top 3 things you want them to focus on. Or what are when they make decisions, you want to empower them with autonomy, right? But what do you have to have with autonomy? You got to have some kind of alignment, right? Because then we're just all going all over the place.
Right.
So when they make those decisions, plan their tactical objectives, as we call it, for that day, that month, that week, that year, what's the kind of backdrop you want them to think about? Hey, with your team, Darren, like when they're out doing their stuff and they're making decisions and you want them to, I know, what are the top 3 things, kind of your narrow focus you want them to think about when they're trying to make decisions? That's where it comes down to clear intent. But it goes back to that focus thing, that why that is so important.